Considering all options means the path forward just got a lot murkier for the Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds, and my name is Jeff Carr. I am a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan, and I've turned an addiction into information for you. An addiction to this team that rips your heart out all the time. We had a different episode for you today. Was going to run with Austin Elmore from ESPN 1530 and 700 WLW. He'll still join me in the latter half of this show, latter third of the show, rather. But the news came out this afternoon. Matt McLain had an MRI on his shoulder. That's not something that a player gets whenever they sit out for precautionary reasons and expect to come back soon. David Bell says that they are considering all options. So we're going to consider all options on today's Locked On Reds podcast that, of course, is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. I want to talk about the impact of this injury, both on Matt McLain and on the lineup, how they can how they can tread water without him. And does this mean it's over? Does this mean it's done? Does this mean that we are done with the division aspirations? No, it just means they got a lot harder. You have to squint a lot harder to see him right now. We're going to get into all of that on today's episode. This is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today and enter the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first order. They've got the last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. And where we'll start today, now, instead of where we were going to start, is with the news about Matt McLain. It was broken by Charlie Goldsmith and Mark Sheldon on Wednesday afternoon, around about 1 o'clock, that Matt McLain had an MRI on his shoulder. He was scratched from the lineup 2 days ago for shoulder soreness. And they said it was just precautionary. David Bell said as long as he gets back into a game within the next couple of days, he'll still be opening day ready. And then they had an MRI. And before we get into the Matt McLain of it all, I just want to caution you. There will be reports, there will be interviews, there will be quotes from David Bell about injuries. They're always going to be positive. The most most positive possible outcome that you can think of, that is what David Bell is going to tell you. And good on him. He needs to maintain a good attitude in the locker room. It does no good, right? It does no good if he gets in front of reporters, if he gets in front of a camera, if he gets in front of microphones and says, it's over, right? He's not going to come out and say the most pessimistic thing. But sometimes I'd like him to be a little bit realistic, because it was obvious that they knew that Matt McLain was going to go get an MRI. So, and maybe it was something they just decided upon today, but I have a hard time believing they went from scratching him from the lineup and saying that he'll be back in a few days, or if he is back in a few days, he'll be on the opening day lineup, to giving an MRI and then, quote, considering all options. That is the direct quote from David Bell. And Charlie Goldsmith, in his tweet about his conversation with David Bell on this matter, Charlie included the fact that David Bell said surgery is one of those options. Pretty sure if Matt McLain has shoulder surgery, that's it for him this year. And maybe he recovers faster and we see him late this season. But with the injury to TJ Friedl, with the 80-game suspension to Noelvi Marte, you are now taking a third member, 33%. I can do that math. 3 out of 9, 33%. 33% of what we thought this opening day lineup was going to be is now gone. And if it's something that maybe he just misses a little bit of time and he can manage the pain with his shoulder, get the surgery closer to the offseason or during the offseason or something like that, and avoid missing time this season, then so be it. But that one gives me a bit of pause too. And when he says considering all options, I think that takes opening day off the table. There's been no reporting to that effect. This is me reading the tea leaves, right? I do not think that David Bell, even in the most positive of manners, even in the most optimistic of prognoses, is telling us they're considering all options, including surgery, and that still somehow equates to him playing on the opening day on the opening day lineup. I just don't see that. So he's at least going to miss some time. This is tough for him because he started camp. He had, he got to camp early. He was ready to go. Then he was doing too many swings in the batting cages and kind of tweaked his oblique a little bit in a different spot, not re-injuring in the last year's oblique injury, but a different oblique tweak. And so he comes back and he plays in a couple of games. You're like, all right, cool. And then he gets scratched from the lineup for shoulder problems. It's not the same as an oblique, so okay, it's a different thing. But now he's getting an MRI on that shoulder. And now they're considering all options. Look, I want to be positive, and we're going to talk about how the Reds can withstand this, but make no mistake about it, this puts a big question mark on the division. As much as I want to sit here and tell you, no, the Reds can still win the division, they need so much to go right now. They need Ellie to take the step forward, to have the plate discipline, to be an MVP candidate. They need CES to be the cleanup hitter that we believe he can probably be in the next couple of years. They need Jeimer Candelario to have a 2021 Nick Castellanos type season because they're going to need the guys that this team was hopefully going to count on. We talked about this in the offseason, right? We said that, okay, this team, the lineup is so deep that if you have somebody that's going through a slump, you got some other guys that can pick them up. It's not the case anymore. This team is not deep because of all the injuries. And sure, every other team that has this many injuries would be going through the same kind of conversation right now. So I'm not saying that the Reds are like unique and this has never happened to anybody else. But what I'm saying is, for those of us, myself, Steve included, who thought this team could win the division, this puts a huge damper on that, man. And I hope that we come out and we hear the most optimistic prognoses and that he doesn't need surgery and that maybe he misses a week or two or something like that and he'll be back. And it's something he can manage. But the fact that he got an MRI leads me to believe that this isn't just some kind of bruised shoulder or, he tweaked it a little bit and it's going to be okay. Something else is going on here. And I hate that for Matt McLain because I really thought he was going to just go crazy this year. I mean, we call him, Matt McLain put the C on his chest. Sounds like we might be without him for a little bit of time. And that's a hit, right? A hit to this lineup that had already taken a few lumps, losing its bona fide leadoff hitter in TJ Friedl and losing a guy who was going to compete for the Rookie of the Year, Noelvi Marte. The solution's going to require a little bit of conversation. We'll get into that coming up next. PrizePicks offer you the best way to make up to 100 times your money on the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download the PrizePicks app today, and you can use code LOCKEDONMLB to get a match of up to $100 on your first deposit. PrizePicks offers the best daily fantasy sports experience. You can pick multiple player stats and just click more or less on those stats, and your entry is ready to go. You can literally do it in like less than 60 seconds. You can do it for all the sports. You can do it for Major League Baseball. You can do it for NBA, for the college basketball tournament going on right now, even hockey as well. Check out PrizePicks today. And it's something too, like you just hop over into Kentucky, put in your PrizePicks wager, and you're ready to go. You can look at things like this, like they've got season stats right now for different players. Jonathan India's home run total is set at 17.5. If you think more or less on that, I'm thinking more. I'm thinking he's got, kind of like we talk about here in just a minute, he's got a newfound strength to his game. I think we're going to see Jonathan India hit more than 17.5 home runs. Add that to your PrizePicks tally today and go win up to 100 times your money. They've also got some great promotions, too. You can check out Taco Tuesdays, where they discount certain players' projected stats and things like that. Help you win more money. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Again, that's code LOCKEDONMLB on the PrizePicks app today. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy. Thanks as always for making Locked On Reds your first listen every single day. Actually, coming up, if you're watching here on YouTube, rolling through after this episode is over, we will roll into the Locked On MLB season preview on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 stream on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to that, by the way. We've got all kinds of great content, whether it comes to local analysis of the biggest sports stories or national shows as well, on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 feed. Make sure you subscribe today. And coming up tomorrow, our final Aloha Friday of spring training. We'll get Steve's take on this, because Steve isn't with me today. He's working today. His work schedule kind of conflicted with everything going on. That's why I initially had Austin Elmore. He was going to be with me the entire show, but funny enough, we talked on that episode about why we weren't worried as much as people thought that we should be worried. Now I'm pretty worried, because in order to fill TJ Friedl, Noelvi Marte, and Matt McLain, they're going to have to get real creative. Matt McLain was probably due to bat third. If not third, he was going to bat pretty high up in the order. He was going to play second base nearly every day. Now you're moving Jonathan India back to second base, where he's a below-average defender, and he has also prepared all spring to play first base and left field. So there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment there in his mind. Probably messes up any chance that he was going to be a valuable left fielder to this team, because now he's going to have to play second base most of the time. He's going to be your leadoff hitter again, too. He's shown that he can do that in the past. I like his plate discipline. And of course, he's got the pop as well. So I've got no problems with that. Which now puts pressure on the outfield. Yet again, this outfield continues to just get decimated. I mean, especially until TJ Friedl comes back. Will Benson's an everyday player by hook or by crook. But even now, You look at a lineup potentially against a left-handed pitcher, you cannot stack the outfield with right-handed bats, because one of Spencer Steer or Jonathan India will have to play in the infield at second base. And then the other one can play in the outfield, and then you have Stuart Fairchild in center field, but that leaves no other right-handers who can play right field. So Will Benson, Jake Fraley, one of those guys is going to have to play right field against a left-handed pitcher. They really need to look, and I'm sure Nick Krall, like I've said before, and I continue to maintain this belief that I trust in Nick Krall and his plan for this team, for its future, for this year as well. It's not as if Nick Krall knew the 33% of his lineup wasn't going to be available on opening day, but now he's got to go out and he's got to look. What does that look like? Because the guys that are out there on the open market now are rejects from other teams. We've gone through this in years past, right? When the Reds claim somebody off of waivers toward the end of spring training, that's not the kind of signing that you have a press conference for, right? That's not an addition to the roster that we circle and we say that's the reason that they're making the playoffs. At this point, any addition that Nick Krall makes is to tread water. That's where the Reds are now. How do they tread water without Matt McLain, TJ Friedl, and Noelvi Marte? Noelvi Marte at least for 80 games. TJ Friedl likely for 2 months. Matt McLain for an undisclosed amount of time. And you're going to have to kick the tires. I don't know if he's going to make the Rangers roster, but could you bring back Jose Barrero? That's where we are with this. Jose Barrero, since becoming a Ranger, has done very little. Struck out a bunch. Got a weighted runs created plus, OPS plus that is very, very low. So I'm not saying that's a good option, but I'm saying he's a familiar face. He understands this team. He understands this locker room. That is something that they will take into consideration with all of that. Plus, we know he can play the infield. He can play the outfield. They told Josh Harrison that he wasn't going to make this roster. They call him back and say, hey, maybe you will. Tony Kemp told him he wasn't going to make the roster. Look, this is not a situation that I'm happy to be analyzing here. This is not a situation where I'm just like, good options are available. We're at the point now where that's not the case. And where the roster stands, we talked about this yesterday, Steve and I did, that when you lay down the lineup that included Matt McLain at the time, the bench was Stuart Fairchild and 3 lefties. Well, Luke Maile, he's a righty, but you're so yeah. Stuart Fairchild, Luke Maile, who can't play the outfield and can't play the infield, frankly, he just plays catcher. You got 2 right-handed bats, one of which can play outfield, and 2 bench guys in Mike Ford and Nick Martini who are left-handed bats, and only one of those guys can play the outfield, and it's corner outfield, and it's not really good defense. And Nick Martini's that guy, and he can't hit lefties. Mike Ford has shown a propensity to hit lefties in a tiny sample size that's not big enough to trust. But that does not give me confidence. And if Matt McLain's going to start the year on the IL, then you're going to have an extra spot on the roster, 26-man spot. Who takes that right now? There's not someone that's like readily available. And I saw this speculation, and I'm curious about this. I think we'll talk a lot about this tomorrow, Steve and I. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on it just yet, but does this mean that Blake Dunn gets an opening day look? Again, he's in that list of guys that doesn't have a whole lot of experience of AA ball and above. But does he get a look? Does Jacob Hurtubise get a look? Oh, Jacob Hurtubise is a left-handed hitter, so that doesn't work either. The Reds are so strapped here in the outfield for a right-handed bat. I think they got to look for that. And we said all offseason, if they could just get a right-handed bat, boy, that would have looked really, really good. Michael A. Taylor, Adam Duvall, even Tommy Pham would have looked really, really good right now. And we'd have felt a lot better about this. And look, I'm not saying, and I mentioned in the first segment, I'm not saying I think that they're done. I'm not saying I think that they can't get to where we've been talking about them getting to all offseason. But it certainly seems difficult now. Feels like a lot of things got to go right. And there's going to be more pressure on guys like Ellie and CES and Jamer Candelario and Jonathan India. More pressure on Will Benson. More pressure on Jake Fraley. And a lot more pressure on this pitching staff. The pitching staff has to be big. The pitching staff has to take a step forward. I talked about in the offseason a expectation, not necessarily a prediction, but an expectation of the Reds pitching staff for the starting pitching at least to be close to league average. Where last year, the starting rotation was almost at the bottom in every category. If they could just be league average in every category, then that's big time progress. They might have to be even a little bit more better than that now. And that's tough. Man, I need... I should have like really sat down and thought of like an optimistic or fun way to spend this. But to be quite frankly, this is how I felt all day. It's just been heavy. It's been, how did the Reds figure this out? Opening day is 8 days away. We are no longer at the point where it's like, they got time to figure this out. And I'm not going to belabor. I think that, letting go of Jose Barrera was kind of silly, but they've probably got a shot. I don't think he makes the Rangers rosters. They could bring him back. So that's a moot point. But you don't feel great about that. You're just at this point in time, at this late stage of the spring training, you're looking for guys who have been in camp with other teams. Free agents are a no-go because free agents aren't ready to go and you don't have enough time to ramp them up. So you're looking at guys who've been in camp with other teams. So you're kind of bargain bin shopping here. You're going to Walmart. You're looking at the $1 DVD bin. right? Not even Blu-rays. We just need to throw something in the player and throw it on TV at this point. That's where we're at. All right. You know what? Let's have some fun. Okay, this is the portion of the show coming up next that I actually recorded with Austin Elmore. We had a whole show planned to tell you why we're not worried, and then Matt McLain got hurt, and that made me worried. So I had to re-record most of this. Appreciate you hanging with me, and those of you in the comments section joining me, whether you're in your consternation or if you're trying to cheer me up a little bit, I appreciate you so much for doing so. But coming up next, Austin Elmore from ESPN 1530 and 700 WLW joins me, and we're going to look at a few things that we think will happen on opening day. That's coming up next. If you want last-minute tickets with the best price, you've got to go to Game Time. Game Time is my favorite way to get into the ballpark. You literally just go down to the banks, chill out for a little bit. When it gets time close to first pitch, they've got some great last-minute deals. Game Time really helps you out with this, too, because they have a couple of different options where you can see what your view will be when you buy your tickets, and you can see the all-in pricing. Other apps will say, oh, this ticket is very cheap, and then add a bunch of taxes and fees and all that other stuff, and then it's not very cheap. Game Time is going to give you the all-in pricing and let you know exactly how much it's going to cost. Game Time is literally my favorite way to go down to the ballpark. I rarely ever pre-purchase tickets because I know I got Game Time in my back pocket. Download the Game Time app today. Use the code LOCKEDON to save $20 off of your first purchase. Seriously, that's a great deal. I mean, we're talking about some really good ticket deals on last-minute tickets, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase if you download the app and create an account today, because Game Time has the last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Let's talk about opening day. Let's be optimistic, because the Reds get the Nationals, and they got Josiah Gray, former Reds prospect, on the mound. Once upon a time traded to get Homer Bailey's contract off the books. That was really the only reason he was traded. I know that Yasiel Puig came, but yeah, that was only fun for a minute. But this opening day feels like there's going to be everyone down at the banks. There's going to be everyone in the stands. I'm sure standing room only is going to have like twice the number of people that it normally does because this season is so hyped. When you think about what's going to happen on opening day, what is something that comes to mind, like a prediction that you're going to see?
I think I'm going to be cold. Our tickets are on the very top row of the stadium, so I'm excited about that opportunity. But sorry, I was cooking up that answer. You said what was the question? My prediction?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, something you'll see on the field.
Yeah, something I'll see on the field. Okay, wow. I'm going to say this is opening day specific?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say back-to-back-to-back homers. You want a bold prediction? There you go. 3 in a row. Now, who's it going to be? I don't know. David Bell doesn't know the lineup till he wakes up in the morning. But 3 home runs in a row for the Reds at one point, maybe even in the first inning to really start the season off. That's a bold prediction for you right there.
The decibel level at the stadium will just be ridiculous if that would be amazing.
And maybe I'll take the over on runs for the game, like 20.5. Maybe it's like a 13-10 game. Everybody's scoring left and right. But yeah, I think it's going to be, kind of to go back to like things we're worried about. Like, you remember that stretch last year when they weren't very good? And a lot of it was everybody was trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark, and they got away from just like keep the line moving. That does worry me a little bit. But also, I think if they stick to that keep the line moving mentality, they're going to run into home runs. And I think you'll see that happen. And I kind of hope that when opening day happens, that mentality just resets. You're not in Arizona. Everything is finally here. Let's just play our game, and they run into some big flies on opening day.
Candelario is a perfect example of that. I mean, his batted ball profile, he's a very line drive heavy guy, is very reminiscent, and I've said this a bunch this offseason, of Nick Castellanos. And Nick Castellanos just ate whenever he hit here. I don't know that Jeimer Candelario is going to have a 2021 Nick Castellanos type season, but he is a guy that those line drives that he hit for the Nationals and for the Cubs are going to turn into home runs at Great American Ballpark. I love the back-to-back-to-back. I think
I'm going off the wall here, Jeff. I'm just going crazy bold.
No, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. Like, I don't want predictions like they're going to get 3 outs in the first inning. Because that's going to happen at some point. I think because they have done it in spring training, they did it a lot last season too. And I'm going to be so pumped when they do this, but they're going to do a double steal on opening day.
I like that.
That's something that, and I forget, and of course it was TJ Friedl before he got hurt, but when they did it earlier this spring training, and I forget who it was against, but they did a double steal and he scored on it. Like, that would be amazing. If you've got first and third and you do a double steal, maybe it's Ellie and you have India on third or something like that, and they're more worried about Ellie and India takes home.
Do you anticipate that India is the everyday leadoff hitter until Friedl gets back?
I think so. My only thought to that is maybe they have McLain hit leadoff, but that I still think I'd be surprised if he hits more leadoff than India. I think that the lineup itself is probably just going to be in whatever positions they end up playing for that day. It's still going to be India, Ellie, McLain. I think CES hits cleanup. I think it's Candelario. We said Steer 5th, but I think it's going to be Candelario, then Steer 6th. 7th will be see, I had this all memorized and I'm losing
whoever's
it.
playing right field.
No, because I still have Benson. Well, Benson will play center field. Jake Fraley batting 7th, playing right field. 8th is Tyler Stevenson, and then Will Benson batting 9th. So this team still has a ton of speed, and I think that India being at the top, I think India's ready to go.
Yeah,
I think that he's felt the smoke all off season. He's felt the haterade, if you will.
Now he's a girl dad. He's got the dad strength.
Yeah.
So
people are underestimating that, by the way. That's that's going to be a thing. Over under. Let's see. We won't do that. Over under hot dogs eaten.
Oh boy.
By you and I on opening day.
Oh, so it's the two of us combined.
Two of us combined.
Now I'm going to be honest. I've been on a strict diet since the start of the year. I'm doing really well on it, but occasions like opening day feel gluttonous. And when you smell the hot dog, right? You smell the hot dog. You smell the beer. I mean, what do you think you could house on a typical opening day?
Opening day, and we'll say from the time you enter the stadium. I'm not going to count, when we show up down at the banks, but from the time you enter the stadium to the end of the game, if I'm trying for it, it could be a lot. I'm going to say I'll probably eat somewhere between 4 or 5.
Oh,
it's not going to be like a 3-2-1 Tuesday.
Right.
Like 3-2-1 Tuesdays, I can go pretty crazy on, but I'd say 4.
Okay, I was going to set the over-under at 6.5.
Okay.
Roughly 3 each, and maybe somebody feels frisky. Maybe it feels like 7 is in play. I don't know.
Feeling the over.
Okay.
Feeling the over. Everydayers are shocked that I'm feeling the over. Yeah, that's what we do around here.
What do you put on your hot dog?
Oh, it's mustard. It's relish. If it's a coney, obviously you get everything. But ketchup does not touch my hot dog.
Relish is rancid. Why do you use it? You don't eat that.
I prefer the dill over sweet, but definitely relish. I eat pickles out the jar, man. I love pickles.
Mustard and onion for me, but
I like that.
Good enough.
I like that. Well, Austin, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for joining me here today. So much going on over at ESPN 1530 for Cincy 360, noon to 3. Him and Tony Pike, the man Tone, and also all throughout the season on Reds Extra Innings and some sports talk and stuff like that. Austin, I appreciate you joining me, man.
Jeff, thank you so much. It was an honor to be here and be able to see each other this time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is fun. That'll do it for this edition of the Locked On Reds podcast. Really appreciate Austin coming on and joining me to talk some Reds. Coming up tomorrow, we have the Aloha Live Friday edition, the final one. spring training before the regular season begins. Make sure you join us at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and make sure you hang around. We've got the Locked On MLB season preview coming up right after this. But if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to get notified here on YouTube, because we're going to be with you all throughout the season, because we are Locked On Reds every single day.